Appalachian expose, getting the person I'm sitting next to needs no introduction whatsoever. I told you we'd do a part 2, and here we are back doing it. Of course, Sabu, the homicidal, suicidal, genocidal Sabu.
Thank you,
We're going to jump right to it because we had gotten to where we were before. I do want to get to the three-way dance and then some other things, but before we get to the three-way dance, I want to ask you, you are one of those transformative characters in wrestling. I was sort of the caretaker, the guy from the old school that was transcending over, like the sort of bridge over to that. What was your inspiration to creating this character? By my take, there may have been stuff in Japan or Mexico that might have been similar, but in America, I had never seen that style, the things you were doing. And I told you before, that first time you did a triple jump moonsault, I'm in the back watching the monitor, and I'm thinking, okay, what's he doing in that chair? And now why is he running that way? And I'm trying to follow along with the spot, and boom, 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 boom. And like I literally jumped out of my seat and popped like a fan, right? Thought that was cool. What was the inspiration for that? Where did that part of the persona of Sabu come from?
I can't really describe it, but when I was training, my uncle said for me to pattern myself after 3 great wrestlers. 3 wrestlers that I think are great. They could be the shits to anybody else, but if I think they're great, then pattern myself after.
Yeah.
But not to a T. So my 3 wrestlers were the Sheik, Tiger Mask, and Jimmy Snuka. And then like coming up with stuff, there was no formula for it. It's just, sometimes you get inspired by something and you write it down.
Yep.
Like in my sleep, I dream about high spots and write them down in the middle of the night. And in the morning, I remember them because they're written down.
Yeah.
And some of my best stuff came that way.
Could you read your scribble?
Yeah.
Because I would do the same, but I'd wait. What the hell?
Yeah,
I like Chinese.
Yeah, I can read it, sort of.
So the 3 characters, obviously, pretty iconic characters at that stage of wrestling.
To me, they were,
of course,
no match either one of them. No.
But still, like I put those 3 characters together in my head. I don't see
what I see.
Exactly. But I don't see Sabu either.
Okay.
I can see snippets of it. But the character, again, it, to me, no small thing. We all hear how much ECW changed the business and how many fans out there love it. And the fact that we still hear 20 plus years later, it's changed. Amazing. And I think a big part of that,
before that, there was no
nothing.
Group chats.
No, nothing like that.
3 letters they chanted. It never said NWA. Never.
No, and still don't, right? So for you fans, I mean, thank you. Like when the fans say to me, because like I had become the face of the voice, right, the guy with the big mouth. I was lucky enough to have a dressing room of Sabus and Taz's and Tommy Dreamers and Ravens and Francine's and all the rest of it to sell, because I could sell back iced Eskimos because it was such a phenomenal dressing room. Were you aware at the time you were doing it, the triple jump moonsault, the Arabian face buster, the breaking of the tables, these things that fans had never ever seen in wrestling before, were you aware in real time as you were doing it that it was changing the industry?
No. I was just trying to up my own match. I had no idea I was going to do that.
So competing against yourself, I got it to hear last time, I'm going to try to get it to hear. A hallmark, by the way, for you fans, our generation, that's what we were taught. Always try to top yourself.
But you start at the bottom and work your way up, right to the top and then try to go higher.
Sure, going to crawl before walk, walk before run. And the reason this is such a great interview for me, exciting to me, is because I was the guy that was getting to work with you as this was being created. And for me, it was easy as pie, because the fans in that building all knew what you were capable of. And the question was, do we just go out there and vomit it up to them and let you do all the stuff that they know you can do? For me, as that heel, if you recall, we'd set it up and cut you off. Set it up and cut you off. And each time the fans are getting angry because they want to see Sabu explode, right? And then you'd feel that energy peak, hit your stuff, bro, and just watch you electrify the place. My character was not capable of electrifying in that way. Mine was sort of caretaker that pulled the fans along, but yours was that, again, transformative. How many people today are out there trying to emulate Sabu, doing a poor job of it, but because you always did it in context. But I'd say there's probably a lot more trying to be Sabu or emulate Sabu. Do you? I know that I'm asking. When you walk into a dressing room, the younger kids obviously are aware of what impact you wore on the industry. Yes?
Yeah, Yes, yeah, I guess so, if you say so. I mean, you know, it wasn't just me, it was a lot of guys, a lot of different things, and it was timing. The business was on a down low when they were tired of bullshit, and we kind of cut through that.
Yeah.
Us as me, you, and ECW,
Right.
you know, and Paul and everybody.
To me, like Bruno, I think, obviously, he's a giant to me. I idolize Bruno. But he never quite got ECW.
Right, I would understand that. My uncle did, though.
Yeah,
My
oh
uncle
yeah.
did.
Well, Sheik, I think, really was, if you follow the roots back, all the way, like Alex Haley did in the book Roots, right? If you follow that lineage all the way back, clearly your connection is to Sheik. But also, Sheik style back then, you could see in 20 or 30 years what that was going to evolve into.
Time.
Yes. So,
but somebody had to be ahead of his time, you know, bound for it.
right. But I guess the general question is, were you aware at the time that you were that far ahead of the curve?
No.
Yeah, because again, you don't think, like,
I was living in the moment,
sure.
worried about my next match.
Yeah.
Not the impact. You know?
Yeah, we're at work today. This is our job today.
Yeah.
We're going to get through today and get to tomorrow.
Back in the early days of ECW and in Japan, people heard about me, didn't see me, so I always wanted to live up to what they heard of.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So that was kind of killing me a little bit, or breaking it down. But it didn't break, you know, it was tough. But that's what my motivation was, to live up to what they heard.
Sure, absolutely. Because it really was becoming, that's how I'd never seen you. I've been reading the sheets, and when I finally did meet you, I was excited to see what you were capable of doing, and you didn't fail to deliver. That was the key, is that ECW, we were always 3 weeks away from being dead. If that arena was empty at any point along there, we were done.
Yeah.
It was because of guys like Sabu that were bringing those fans back in.
I never looked at it like that. We're 3 weeks from dying.
Yeah, but it was incumbent on a guy like me as a veteran to how to best showcase Sabu if I'm working with Sabu, how to just give this platform to this incredible athlete in the ring. Clearly you were taking a toll on your body. I mean, that was not easy to do. And for you fans to understand, the Arabian face buster with the chair, the table breaking, everything. I was always able to implicitly trust you. Like there was never a time taking any of that stuff that I thought, oh, he's going to break my nose or whatever. And again, you never failed to deliver. Now, every third punch of yours was a indicator, but the big stuff. I vividly recall it when you broke the first table, and as common as that is today, it was uncommon then, never done.
Right.
And I remember seeing it the first time and being like look at the reaction, right? But right off of that, with maybe that same night or within a week or two or three, Public Enemy was now breaking tables, and everybody was breaking tables.
You got to read the style.
Yes. So a good way to put it. Like, did you see it as changing the style, or somebody stealing your stuff?
Someone stealing my shit.
Of course.
At
Right.
first.
Yes.
Now it's no big deal.
Yeah.
But at first, my referee calls me and goes, I was in Japan, he goes, Public Enemy just broke a table. I said, bullshit. I called Paul. I said, Paul, did someone just break a table? He goes, no. I said, PB said he's seen it. He goes, well, we didn't emphasize it. I said, did you or didn't break a table? He goes, well, they did, but they didn't mean it. They will never do it again. I said, no. Why don't you let those guys do it? They're not going to have a match without it. And they didn't. They took that right to WCW.
Right.
You know? So I was a little bitter about that, but then eventually, you know, it's just a spot.
Yeah. I always tell people we all borrow from each other, right? There's really no original. Well, I agree and disagree.
The only thing I disagreed with was pulling tape out from under the ring. Yes. I liked it at ringside with a bell and a ring announcer there, and you know, a ringside table, ringside furniture, not a prop under the ring.
Right.
That I disagreed with.
So for you young workers out there, you've always heard me say, just make it make sense, right? That's what I'm talking about.
Pulling the tape out from under the ring is not making it make sense.
No,
it's just the opposite.
Yeah, it's just a prop now.
Yeah, it's a prop.
It's not an integral part of what we're looking at. I guess in theater terms, we would call that Antons Gun, right? So it's, you know, if Anton the Great writer wrote that, Chekhov. If there's a gun on the mantle in the back of the scene, at some point that gun's going to come into play, right? Because it's there for a reason. Yeah, somebody actually put that gun there for a reason. Right. Same thing with the tables under. You put it there, it's just now we're going to break a table because it's wrestling.
But you can make it a prop, if that's what you want to call it, by putting it at ringside with the ring announcer and the timekeeper there, like you're supposed to do.
Just make it make sense.
like they do in any other, boxing, wrestling.
Right. I remember a conversation with Tommy early on.
UFC, they got a ringside table.
Right. the conversation with Tommy, as you remember, like Tommy was always paranoid, right? And so he was saying that he was afraid WWE or WCW stealing our stuff. And I couldn't see that happening, and I don't believe they did. They tried. But they didn't have yet then a Sabu or the people that were
and they didn't
creating
understand our bumps or our psychology when we wrestled. They didn't understand it. They thought we were just taking big bumps for that.
Right. And so that manifests itself in those federations as bring a garbage can full of garbage and we'll see each other with it.
Right.
And with all due respect, that was not what this man did. At the time we were doing, were there guys that were nervous to take the face buster or the table? Because my feeling and remembrance of the dressing room was pretty much everybody was willing to go along and take, and we sort of all trusted each other.
Yeah.
And did you ever run into the?
A few guys would say like, how bad is it gonna hurt?
Yeah.
And I go, if it hurts, I'll give you $100.
Yeah.
And nobody collected $100.
Right. Yeah.
And I thought, man, that was a breeze.
There was another iconic moment that I actually played part of. Not that I was part of it, like the thinking of it or anything. It's just one of those things that happened that has now become an iconic moment of ECW. When you're wrestling Terry Funk in the barbed wire and you get the leg lariat in the corner and just gaff you, 2 rips up your arm, major rips, very serious rips. And Fonzie came back yelling for tape, and I threw tape to him down, and you taped yourself up. Were you, again, I know you at that moment, but like in the day, week, month after that, were you aware that that was becoming what was to be the legend of ECW? These guys are real gladiators.
Yeah, no, I didn't think that. It was just, I'm not sure on why I even had the match other than Paul goes, what do you think of barbed wire matches Friday with Terry? I go, great. It wasn't no plan or nothing, which I disagree with no plan.
Yeah.
But in that case, it worked out.
Right. Well,
me and him didn't have to have an angle down barbed wire match. We didn't have any match.
Especially at that age for Terry.
Yeah.
And but it still did showcase Sabu in this so rare of a visual to wrestling fans in America that it instantly was stamped classic. Right, here's a classic ECW moment. So many of those come back to you. Right, there's I had the belt throwdown, but when I think of ECW and all those oh my fucking god moments, I see your face and name attached to a lot of that. That the industry is, for again, young wrestlers out there, if you haven't, and I know most of you do, for those of you that aren't aware of what this man's impact was on wrestling, there are very few wrestlers that come into our industry, as you're aware of, that get to change the industry, and you were one of those guys. And I don't say that lightly or just, you're my friend and I'm blowing smoke. This was a time when the industry had become cartoon.
Yeah. And it was embarrassing to be saying you're a pro wrestler.
Yes.
I didn't tell people I was at the time.
Right.
Before that, I mean.
Right. But then here's this company, ECW, where the fans are bringing weapons into the building. And there was this, were you aware early on, if you recall my earliest promos, we're calling it a shoot and Webster's, it's a sport and blah, blah, blah. And Paul came to me and said, you gotta stop saying that because everybody was likening us to a human cockfight. We're just going out there and beating the shit out of each other, which we weren't. I mean, we were
it was work.
Yeah, we were ramping it up, but we weren't really, for the most part, hurting each other. In that time again, like I'm trying to get into your head, like how aware you were. I could sense that we were a different flavor in wrestling. Like there was something different about this, the work ethic in the dressing room, the underlack early on of the politics in the dressing room, and the freedom to allow somebody like Sabu to go out there and do those things that you had envisioned up here, to actually bring that to life. Prior to that, like in Japan and things, my experience in Japan is they want to lay out a finish that's pretty much the whole match. How much freedom had you had prior to ECW to be able to create those things?
FMW gave me freedom of making my own finish. When I was going over, you make your own finish. If you can't make your own finish, then try it over to your own.
Right.
Right. So they gave me freedom of that where whatever I said, they didn't disagree with, even how outlandish it was. But I didn't go that outlandish. But I did, table chair stuff, and they never said, no, you can't do that.
Right.
Or, they just said they encouraged it.
But the way you would set it up, again, I can't speak for the FMW side, but in ECW, the way you would set it up,
Yeah,
all made
I would
sense.
tease it, and then finally hit it. You
Yes.
know? And when I worked when I did Vince in the one night stand before Vince, and I wrestled Rhino, Vince goes, just break a table. And I said, well, I'll do it like this, that, the other thing, and then I'll break a table. He goes, no, just break it. I go, how about this, that, the other thing? He goes, no, just break it. I said, all right. And then I went out in the ring, and I did this and that, and then broke it. And then he goes, oh, I see what you meant.
Yeah.
He never let me do it again.
Right. It's you know, for me, like this little egress here, going to WWF then, it was very apparent to me that Vince had no respect for ECW.
No.
And he saw it as something, just like I said, a can of garbage that hit each other with it. And
Well, he didn't give us much more credit than the backyard guys.
right. And yeah, well put. And to me, having, at that point, I'd been around the business 11, 12, 13 years, and I'm watching that, and I can tell this is something different. But again, I don't think that any of us understand that we go to work tonight and we have a match tonight or an angle tonight. It's just a day at work, and we're going to go out there and do the best
We
we
don't
can.
see the whole big picture of what someone else is looking or
Right.
waiting for our next step.
Right. So were you aware at that time of you becoming sort of the face of ECW?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. No.
Because the fans, see, and the reason I'm asking
Well, see, I always thought like the faces like you, someone who can talk and present, have a press conference. At the time when I first got to ECW, I was an animal that couldn't even walk to the ring without being chained up.
Right. 911 chained up.
To me, that couldn't be a face.
Right.
Of a company.
The way I like it when I explain to people is we could sense that we were changing the industry because we were doing something different. But it also was just another night at work. And for me, I didn't, don't get me wrong, I had a lot of fun there. I had a lot of great talent like you and others to work with.
Well, it's great when you can do whatever you want to do and it works.
Right. And it pops the crowd and entertains the actual crowd, which is the whole intent of doing what we do.
Yeah.
But I didn't have as much fun as I could have at the time because I had come
from. Savor it enough. Yeah.
Right. Because, I'm in the dressing rooms prior to ECW with the Harley Races and the Dusty Roses and the Ric Flairs and Steamboats and all these guys that are demonstrating to me that every night in the building, they're sort of being the caretakers of the dressing room. Keeping the flow and keeping the craziness out and trying to keep a lid on it to some extent. And I had seen that as part of my role, was as the guy who'd been to WCW and WWF and done these things, that was to keep this all together in some semblance of still a promotion, but with all the craziness. So I want to get to the three-way dance, because the three-way dance is like that first major. To me, the three-way dance.
Well, I don't think I ever heard of a three-way match before that.
No.
I don't think.
I had never seen one. I didn't know in Japan were there ever. Or?
No.
So
maybe Mexico, but I don't know. I can't document it.
When you went into the match, I remember thinking to myself, I have no idea how to do this. Wrestling another person, I know the psychology I can put in there. But now there's going to be another loose guy out here, and I'm not sure how to wrap this all together. Were you feeling the same thing, going out there for that?
Well, I was saying 30 or 60 minutes, and then Bob was, well, actually 45, because I go, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
That was, I'm not used to going, I can't keep my pace up for 45 minutes.
No.
You and Terry helped me.
Well, we helped each other. It's
yeah. So I was panicking about how long it was, because if I got a 10-minute match, I start to die around 9.
Yeah, you get home. To me, it was like a fish out of water, because I just couldn't comprehend two opponents that are, sort of, if I'm doing something with you over here, what's Terry doing? And I can't do
that sparked me, because that's the way we could do three-way submissions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Save each other from covering, from pinning the
Right.
other guy, and it would make sense because you want to get the win, not the other guy. Although the other guy gets the win, he wins the match.
Right. I was sort of just, my MO to that match was, not that I went to the ring.
I thought there was a lot of strategy there.
Yeah. For me, it was just hoping to hold on, hang on to Terry, just keep up with Terry. And because I trusted Terry implicitly. So there was, in that chemistry, but by the end of the match, and we'll get into the body of the match in a second, because you just mentioned the three-way sleeper. That's become another one of those iconic moments. At the end of the match, Sherry Martel was managing me, and I'm blown sky high. I'm rolling under the rope. It's August '93, hotter than hell in Philadelphia in that building. And I'm blown.
93?
Yeah, it was not, yeah. So I roll under the rope, and Sherry is standing right there with her back to the hard cam, and she goes, "Oh my God, look!" And I look at the audience, and they're standing giving us golf clap.
Oh yeah. That's never been done.
No.
Standing ovation.
And I remember thinking they're just being nice because
They were more than they held it for about what 20 minutes.
Yes,
or something? Like
yeah.
a long time.
And it was at that moment I couldn't understand. When I come back from the ring, if I've had a good match, there's those few moments where it sort of just falls into autopilot, right? You're just going out there doing something, and you get to the dressing room, you can't even really remember the specifics of what I did. It just happened. This did not feel like that to me. It felt very herky-jerky, start, stops, this, that.
Yeah, and long,
Yeah.
Didn't want to bore them.
Right.
Out here about boring them and blowing up,
Yes. So it wasn't until later that week when Paul would send me the raw footage, and because he and I would then strategize, like I would tell him my thinking was the psychology, the angles should go.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm watching the match back, and I don't know how you are, I hate watching myself perform because I see every mistake I'm making.
Well, of course, you can see through yourself.
Right. So I watch it, and first I rewind it, second time, the third time through I'm watching it, I start to see that it starts to come out of the screen to me what's going on. There is this tension between the three ways, and while stuff is going on over here, the third person, like I always tell the kids, the art of looking like you're doing something when you're doing nothing.
Yeah.
And yet there was this constant,
That is an art.
Sabu and Funk are doing their stuff, and then here I come and you pull back, and then me and you and Terry pulls back. And there was that, I remember when Terry was on all fours and doing running headbutts on all fours.
Oh, that was good.
That was where the third time through I got it. Like it sort of coalesced to me where the special part of this match was. In the body of the match, the three-way sleepers, I recall Terry had gotten you in a sleeper hold, yes? And I was off loose. And I don't know why I thought of it. I hit the ropes and I was seeing clotheslining Terry off of you. And as I'm coming off the ropes, I see it. It just, boom, there it is. And we stepped into it and we did the reverse, you up on top and the switching positions. And every time I see that picture of the three heads and the headlocks, it puts me right back there, thinking like how we didn't talk that over in the back. There was no, hey, when you do this, I'll do that. It just sort of happened. We were all trusting each other. What was your feeling on the setup of being you and I start, you got hurt, leave, Funk comes, then he leaves, and there's the Spirit of 76, almost babyface comeback. At the time that we're in the back setting this match up, again, we don't sit back and say, okay, you do this and then I'll do that. It's just sort of general psychology and flow. We're going to the ring. Was Sabu aware of what Sabu was going to do?
No.
It just,
I was just going to follow the lead and try to improvise it when I can.
Yeah. And
I was following you guys. I never did 60 minutes or 45. I never did over 20.
Yeah. And the same thing, I was following you and Funk. And I'm sure Funk was probably following us. But the fact that makes that work is I trusted you, you trusted me.
Right,
we trusted Funk and back forth. And at the end, that became that first iconic match in ECW. To me, if you'd have said in the dressing room right before we went out that this is going to be what this is going to put ECW on the map, I would have, you were nuts, right?
Yeah,
Same thing?
I would never thought that.
Yeah.
I just thought it was another match, but a harder match because it's 60 minutes.
Yeah. And that extra arm hanging out here. There's like another piece that's sort of floating loose here.
Right.
Do you remember the spot where you took the powder out of the ring?
Back to the dressing room?
Yes.
Not exactly. I think I did some kind of bump where I got carried out.
Yeah. So you had set a table up against the railing and put me against the table and had me move.
Oh, like a Frankenstein.
Yes.
Like in the 45-degree angle, yeah.
And the table was pretty steep. I mean, because you obviously couldn't have it break off into the audience. And I remember laying on, I trusted you. My concern was at the angle of this table.
Where am I going to land?
Yes. How are you going to hit this? And so I'm trying to figure, like, if I roll out of the way and grab you before you drop on your head or whatever. But if you watch that bump to me is what sets the three-way dance up to be successful. Because it looked like you genuinely killed yourself.
See, actually what I was going for, I was trying to break it off so I could hang upside down on the guardrail. But it didn't work that way.
Yeah, it hit its and it came down. Yeah, it was a
But it was nothing but. I was so hyped up, couldn't feel that.
And then Funk comes, right? And there's again this laying out of this oh my God moment, this crash and burn by Sabu being taken out. And then here comes Terry. And, you know, the old soldier come to the ring and get right into it. And then 15 minutes later, him out, and here you come. To me, it kept refreshing the chemistry. Fresh.
They kept reinventing the match, you know.
Right.
Taking it to another level, you know.
Right.
Instead of going like that, you kept going.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that at the time, you know.
Nor did I. No, I love it. Yeah.
If you realize that it's probably, I don't know, I didn't realize it. It made it more special that I didn't.
Yeah. Now, since, and I'm sure you've been in positions like I've been, where somebody wants to have a three-way dance in some independent show, and they're really hard to set up because you're not quite sure of this other person or the other opponent's their abilities. I had Sabu and I had Terry Funk to play off of pretty iconic characters. So in doing that, I'll tell the promoter, you understand, like, there's two major pieces missing in this puzzle. And whether these other two can or cannot carry that off, I'm not so sure. My guess is typically no, because again, I know that these other two opponents, nothing against them, but they hadn't had your upbringing in the business with Sheik, my upbringing in the business with Dominic and all those guys. So, and then of course Terry Funk.
Yeah.
You know, those are the pieces of the puzzle that put those three pieces together, and it works much like we did in the first Hardcore Homecoming. I repeated the three-way dance, but with barbed wire. And great match. I don't think it compares to the original, only because the original is always going to be the better.
Right.
So I tell people all the time, if we would try to create a new ECW today, we would fail, even if we were twice as good, because the legend of the ECW has grown so mythically large. Like, we were all 10 foot tall.
And people didn't expect it. They didn't know what was coming next.
Right.
Now they can tell what's coming next.
Yeah.
Death match somewhere down the road or something like that.
Or they think they can guess it.
Yeah, but they know something bigger down the road. Before then, they thought that was it.
Right.
And we kept adding to it, and they go, that's it, can't get no better, and then we give it, make it better.
Right. It's, again, one of those iconic moments of ECW that I was fortunate enough to be a part of, because when I watch my style of a character in that, there's a Sabu that is this explosive character the fans look at, and Terry Funk, who's just legendary status. But those three pieces fit together. They work, in large part because we all did trust each other.
Mm-hmm.
And
it wasn't trust not hurting me. Trust that you knew what you were doing.
Yeah.
You know, follow your lead. If
Sure.
you wanted to lead, then I trust that you knew what you were doing.
Right.
And
Just follow along. It's the selling during the match. Again, I think of the spot with the running headbutts. Again, there was no time in the back that Terry came to me and said, "Hey, I'm gonna be on all fours."
Right.
It just did it.
Fed into it. Yeah.
And we know how to feed off it, right? And boom, 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 boom. There is that, I think, again, that part where it just sort of laid itself out. And, you know, because I think we both know Terry well enough to know that he didn't pre-plan that. He just saw it and took it. And then we fed into it in the three-way dance, or the three-way sleeper.
Right.
Again, just those things that happen as they happen because they unfolded that way. It's like when you play golf, you don't move your ball from here to there. Here's the ball that we're playing with in this three-way dance, and just flowing into and out of it. In hindsight, what are we, 30 years later, 30 years today later,
Is it?
93 to 2023, so yeah, you're right.
Wow.
Wow, 30 years already,
I
but
didn't realize that.
who,
My check is still bouncing.
so like with Paul, how, first of all, is there any relationship with Paul today?
No, I talked to him a little bit since he's been boss of WWE, but not much. No.
Yeah. My take on Paul, people always ask this, is like, well, I'd be pissed at Paul, I'd go after Paul, this kind of thing. And there is that anger that we rode that money, right?
Yeah.
But are you also, like, to me, I was like the yin and yang, like the philosopher point of my life, right? Where there's the good and there's the bad, and these things all coexist with each other without Paul Heyman being the booker in ECW. I really doubt that anybody else would have had come up with a idea for
Not
a franchise.
just run with it like that.
Right.
Or following that, what I did, thinking that that's the future.
Yeah. Now, when he would do, like,
I mean, that took a special somebody.
Paul
Not
for me
anybody could do that.
was exacerbating because I wanted, after a while, I wanted more parameter, like a little more leeway for the character. Give me some more traits in this character. And he never would give. He would always
Really?
And
You wanted
then,
more? You wanted,
yeah,
that's not
like help me. Like I didn't want to keep doing the flare thing because everybody knew he wasn't coming by then. Give me some more flesh to put on his bones, and he would always push it off. Same thing with finishes and matches. It became for me. I had always take a finish and work it through my head and tweak it here, tweak it there to make it make sense.
Yeah.
And he would always put me off. The very typical from the first night as the franchise of a 5-minute promo. I'd never done a 5-minute promo. They're hard to do if you're not well versed in it.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, "What do you want me to say? What do you want me to say?" This goes on all day, and he keeps giving me this. Now my music's playing, and I'm starting to get a little stressed. And I went, "Paul," and he, "What do you want me to say?" And he went, "Whatever you want." And it scared me for a second. And I thought, "Wait, this is what I was learning from all these guys, working on it." And went out there and just calmed myself down enough. But that became the mantra of Paul. When it came to finish, the only thing he would tell me is up or down.
Yeah.
And then trust me.
He never gave me no intricate advice.
Did he ever say to you, "Hey Sabu, don't forget to throw this in"?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I don't think so.
Yeah. He very occasionally would say, make it before you take him, give you a lot of falsies, something like that. Or if it was a promo, "Hey, don't forget to mention Sabu" or whatever. But
yeah, I'm not sure. I'm sure he has.
Yeah.
Nothing comes to mind right off.
But by and large, he trusted Sabu to be Sabu.
Yeah.
He knew that you knew that character.
Yeah.
And that really was, for me anyway, that was being taken out of the straitjacket, right? Like WCW, WWF, all the places were, okay, listen to your agent, do this and do that.
Definitely.
And so you're delivering somebody else's.
Before that, even FMW, I followed what they told me to do. Now they let me be myself, of course, but in the end, I had to follow what they wanted me to do. And so when I got to ECW, all I did was follow in line. And little by little, I tried to break out, but mostly not. And then Paulie said, do what you think is best.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always that way.
Right. No.
It wasn't even close to always that way. I followed the rules for the first 7 years.
Yeah. And initially, it felt sort of awkward, like going out there and just creating your own.
Nah, not me. I like that. I don't know. I always felt like whenever they told me to do something, I still made it my own. So.
Right. Yeah. For me, it was always, at least in that initial part, because I was so used to being given these finishes or the agent at the time saying, "Hey, you got this long, do this." For me, it was completely freeing to be able to go out there and say, "Okay, I'm going to take the match this way or this way." Do you, in your recollection, mine anyway, is that there was very little selfishness in ECW. Experienced the same thing? Did you feel the same way?
Yeah, a lot of everybody was kind of sacrificing themselves for each other, and yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
It wasn't a competition, personal. It wasn't a personal competition.
Right, and there was competition. I would typically have to follow this guy for ringing, which was a bit daunting.
Well, I always said it was a popularity contest.
Yeah.
I tried to get people to like you more than the next guy.
Right, but I want to see you go out and tear the house down. I'm going to go out and try to top it. I may not, but I'm going to try.
Right.
And there was never that stab me in the back. Hey, Sabu, tone it down so I don't have to do this much.
I know. It was never that.
Yeah, never that.
I never even thought of anything like that. It never crossed my mind.
Right. In hindsight with the industry, let's talk about the business side of wrestling for a second. She, obviously a huge influence in your life. Dominic, a huge influence in my life. Bruno, the same thing. At this stage, after, I tell people all the time, like with a guy like Sabu, because I do see your characters that's so transformative character that took wrestling from the dark ages up into where it became ECW, this large legend.
The Attitude Era.
Yeah.
They get credit for it, right?
Yeah.
The Attitude Era, right? The Attitude.
Where they tried to emulate, right? But they didn't have the person.
But that was the birth of the new big money in WWF.
Yeah.
Steve Austin and those guys.
Yeah. Well, I love Steve. And I think he's brilliant because he had just come through ECW, right? And the character
make like $10 million a year.
And you see the character that would become Stone Cold, right? The first time I saw it, I literally
that became Stone Cold when he did it for ECW, and Paulie had him do that promo for Fish Out.
Yeah.
That's where that came from.
Yeah.
He probably had that in him the whole time. That was the first time it was probably a video tape.
Right. But what became Stone Cold in WWF after the Ringmaster debacle?
Right. The shaved head.
He took 3 iconic ECW characters and put them into one. Taz, Sandman, and the fuck you franchise to the top 3 characters. He couldn't take the Sabu character because none of us were capable of doing that shit. But and I tell people all the time, brilliant.
He got his 3 guys.
We weren't smart enough to do it. But on the business side, what's your feelings on the, and if you don't want to talk about it, I get it. To me, Sabu has drawn so much money for promoters in his career, right? That Sabu's name on the marquee or the poster is going to sell tickets. When I look at the industry and I see that at one time, I don't know what it is right now, but the WWF with 100, maybe 150 wrestlers under contract, was outgrossing the NFL and the NHL combined. 1,400 in the NHL, 1,600 in the NFL. How many hundreds or thousands of front office personnel and everybody else?
Right.
WWF, 100, 200 employees, 100, 150 wrestlers. That there wasn't an equivalent. If you were one of the, let's say you were the top quarterback in the NFL right now, what would your salary be? I mean, it'd be off the charts, right? I mean, hundreds of millions in a 5 or 10 year contract. I'd always felt compelled to see the business. That's where I always saw wrestling one was the route of like UFC and more legitimacy as opposed to less and less, more cartoon. That the industry, I don't want to say it owes any of us anything, but with the money that was being drawn, to me, there should have been some semblance of money being put aside for wrestlers down the road, right? So like the NFL takes care of its retirees. Every other major sport does, but wrestling for some reason.
And got like Undertaker.
Right.
I'm sure he's taking care of it.
Yeah,
Matthew taking care of it. Rich.
Right. Having the unbelievable run. I guess on my soapbox, I don't know, and I'm not necessarily opining for union. I watched my parents both work in unions, and it worked out for the people that are running the union, but it didn't really work out for the rank and file. So I'm not quite so sure. You have any insights on that? Like what you would see what's the perfect wrestling business look like to Sabu?
Oh, I don't know. A retirement plan, of course, but even in injury insurance on the spot, or even
sure. If it's incumbent on me as a promoter to want Sabu to go out there and do these crazy moves that undoubtedly are going to at some point lead to injury. The fact we were talking on the way.
I always took that on myself. If I got hurt somewhere, I never said you got to get my knee fixed. I just went on to the next match.
Sure.
I never said that.
Yeah, and
I should have, but I never did.
Well, when we were talking about it on the way down yesterday, my friend Ned and I, that you'll never hear a wrestler complain about being injured or having a bad knee or a bad neck or back. You'll never hear an NFL player saying he had a 40-year career and I blew my knee out. Right? Going into wrestling, I knew injury was inevitable. I hoped it wouldn't. And the fact that we've wrestled, you and I have wrestled each other 1,000 times, 1,500 times, 2,000 times, and never really an injury that would keep me out. No. The fact that we're able to do it on that level of professionalism, and do it that many times without facing serious injury, I think is a testament not only to your skill to what you can do to pop a crowd, but to do it and actually work it and not kill the guy.
No.
I could go to a bar and find somebody and say, hey, go jump off that ledge and smash this guy.
Right.
The monkey could do that. Right.
Without breaking somebody.
Bingo. Top 3. Did she teach the top 3 rules? Dominic used to always tell us, Joy to us. Take care of your opponent, take care of yourself, take care of each other. Those are the top 3 rules, right? And now we see, obviously, I think when most people, my son's a guitarist, right? So he looks back and tells me the guitarists that were an influence on him. Clearly, Sabu was a major influence on young wrestlers today. The people watching him be, oh my God, I want to be like that guy. Are you surprised that, first of all, comparative to how seldom you hurt somebody doing the insanity stuff that you were doing, and then today the kids that are not quite emulating to the level you did, but in that vein, but they are hurting people.
ECW was the first company that I worked for, or even heard of, that wasn't frowned on hurting your opponent. Your opponent, that's up to you and how much you can take.
Right.
Nobody got fined or fired for it.
Yeah.
And so that's what the mentality is today with that Tony Khan is like, suck it up and get your teeth knocked out. That's what I think.
Right.
So I don't think they're afraid to hurt each other.
Yeah. And
There's no consequence.
Yeah, and clearly are. I thought I saw a list a year or two ago of the injuries in AEW. There was this list of there.
Oh, I know.
20-something ACL, Achilles, 2 or 3 broken necks.
Really?
Yeah, and in your career, was there ever times, I can't think of one of mine, in any dressing room where there were 10, 15 people injured that couldn't go?
No, see, I wasn't really injured all that much. I exaggerated it. It's part of our business.
Sure.
You exaggerate something little to make it big. So I exaggerated it. So I really wasn't injured that much. And the guys who should know better are the boys.
Yeah.
You know, so they got to take care. You know, they got to ease up. You know, I don't know how to do it, but you know what I mean. But
Yeah.
you know, the injury thing. You know, you suck it up and take it, but still, it's not called for if you don't have to. Tiger G Singh, he's kind of a yellow guy, like runs away from everything. He always said, the people can't feel it, so why are you hurting me?
Right.
If you can do it without hurting me, why are you hurting me?
Of course. And there's, and you say that there was something that Sabu added to his character that I thought, you know, it's not necessarily always the big stuff, right? I mean, Steamboat taught me the segues between the spots.
The small stuff is what make it the big stuff.
Yes.
You gotta have the small stuff.
And I saw you then doing stuff that I had never seen people do before. You would hit me with an Arabian face buster, a moonsault, put me through a table, but then you would sell it. Today, in our business, it was always, I do this to you, whatever, I get up
If
and
it's an
talk.
offensive move, you don't sell it.
Right.
Like you see guys take hard bumps, like a clothesline, write it down, and take a hard bump on their back, and they don't sell it at all.
Right.
Or a missile drop kick, I hate that.
Yeah.
A missile drop kick from the top rope, they land on their back, and they don't sell their head.
Right.
I mean, that actually jars the shit out of them, and they don't sell it.
Right, and I see the iconic moments where you do something, you roll over, kicking your feet and selling your ribs, whatever. To me, that was such a integral part of what built that myth of ECW.
Yeah.
Because suddenly, here is a top guy doing these things, and it's hurting him too,
Yeah.
right? The physics of it line up.
And sometimes it would, you know, leg drops hurt your ass and hurt your back, and sometimes, you know, suplexes knock the wind out of you.
Sure.
So I take every suplex that knock the wind out of me,
Right.
every leg drop that jars my spine. Not everyone does, but sometimes it does.
Right. It's the same thing in fighting to the audience. I point this out to people because, it wasn't something, we didn't sit down in a room and have a team meeting one day and say, okay, fight out into the audience and you break tables and you do this.
Right.
There was none of that, it just sort of happened. And to me, whenever I see, I guess some people look at the big stuff and go, okay, wow, that's great ECW. I look at the more nuanced stuff. You know, you and I fighting out into the audience, and as we're fighting, you see the fans standing right here, and there's like this, oh my God, look. Why? Because while we're hitting each other out there, we're really laying stuff in. And it's what's the old saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words.
Well,
a
always
video's worth
sounds
100.
like we laid in more closer you are to the people.
Yeah, we weren't tailoring each other.
Knock teeth out.
Right. But that really sold it. Those fans, no matter how much you and I sold, no matter how much you and I put it over in a promo, those fans were like set in that concrete. Like, man, these guys are doing something different.
See, I used to not like fighting outside of people because the only ones that could really see are the people around you. But the people who loved it, once you spill over the guardrail, they went nuts. And you can't deny that. You give them what you want, what they want. And that's what they want. Even though I thought they were getting ripped off, they didn't.
Right. The ECW arena, and the fans hear these kind of cliches all the time, and I think they think at times we're embellishing stuff or like putting our stuff over more than it should have been. Do you agree with the phrase that I've said 1,000 times, I've heard more people say 10,000 times, there was magic in that building? Yeah,
it was the atmosphere, the people, the actually dingy of the building. You know, if it was a nice building, we wouldn't have the same atmosphere.
Right.
We wouldn't be able to do the same shit we did because we could pretty much destroy that building.
Right.
Tape it and dial it back up.
Yeah.
I used to do spots where they went through the wall, right?
Yes. Yeah. I remember going to that building one night for sure. I was sick as a dog, had flu or something, and just did not want to work, didn't think I could. But as soon as I walked through the curtain, there was this weird thing happened, like, ta-da, I'm not sick. But when I walked back through the curtain, I was sick again. Out there, it was, perfectly, again.
Yeah, the adrenaline and the hype and the hypnotism of the building.
Yeah.
You know, I always say it's like hypnotism because when you get out in the building, you can say anything you want, but once you start walking to the people, it kind of hypnotizes you.
Oh, yeah.
You're on autopilot.
My son, again, working on getting his career started with music, and I had his first paying gig last week, and I said to him, it's a powerful opiate, isn't it? Being in front of that crowd, And for somebody like mine was more nuanced. So like it wasn't the pops at the crowd. I was looking for the booze and getting those things.
Well, those things was pops.
Sure, absolutely.
You know,
But like for a babyface in that arena, where those fans were so smart and still buying your stuff, I never saw you perform. And I don't say this just because you're my friend and you're sitting here. There were times that you were banged as shit and would go out there and still deliver the goods. I mean, it wasn't half a Sabu match. It was a Sabu match.
yeah, it was obligated, and I could always do mind over matter most of the time. You know, usually an injury didn't hamper me that much.
Right. Feeling it now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just the other day, I got off the plane in Michigan about a week ago, and I could hardly walk.
Yeah.
And out of nowhere, I was fine when I got on the plane. When I got on the plane, I couldn't walk. Hardly walk.
Yeah. Welcome to being 39, right? It's
I was 39 once before. I didn't like it.
Appreciate you being here, Sabu. There's so much more we're going to talk about because there's so much of our careers that ran concurrent and actually had the pleasure of being peers. You know, we ran the industry together.
Well, you know, we got a relationship that can never be broke. You know, me, you, Taz, Van Dam. We created even before Van Dam, me, you, and Taz, and maybe even Dreamer, and Sandman, that we took something that everybody said not going to work, killing the business, and stuck it out, and it worked. And they're still talking about it today. And we were only alive for 7 years, 8 years. You know,
well,
we were alive long.
The numbers are crazy. I dug into this when I was working on the promotion last time. In the 8 years, 7.5 years ECW was in existence, according to the record, ECW spent about $8.4 million, start to finish. WCW and WWF in that same time both spent in excess of $400 million.
Wow.
And again, no chance of WWE or...
I just wanted $1 million.
Right. It's, but there is, to me, there's a cool
We
factor.
competed with those guys, where people preferred us over them, and they were struggling to keep up.
And they followed our lead,
Attitude Era.
not the other way around. They followed us.
Right, yeah, well, the Attitude Era.
Right.
That was all us.
Right.
Sandman, Steve Austin drinking beer and swearing, that was Sandman.
Right. And it's, you know, people always ask this question of us, and I don't ever put myself in that because I really don't. First of all, the guys that came before us, I'm like, they're giants, right?
Yeah.
I don't consider
But
myself.
it has to change, you know. Even now it has to change, you know.
Right.
Even though it's changed, it's got to change some more.
Right.
It's not going to stop changing.
Right.
You know.
But when I get asked the question, who's on the Mount Rushmore, right? And to me, if we're going to preclude and say we're not going to go to any of the Sheets or Brunos and take those guys out because they're such giants, in my Mount Rushmore, Sabu has to be one of those faces. Maybe where Abraham Lincoln is, because it's the flavor that ECW became, right? The franchise character was an extension of WCW, UWF, WWF. That he was the classic wrestler. The face, Sandman, Sabu, Funk, and that last one, probably one of the faces, like Tommy or Taz, because you guys were the foundation that was wrestling, that was ECW built upon, with the Kiss cover with you guys.
Oh, yeah.
To me, that is so representative of what it should be. Because I was the wrestling guy in that, and I was the extension of those other companies. You guys were the guys that really changed that face. They took wrestling into the stratosphere to me. And so as a friend and as a fan of wrestling, I want to thank you for what you've done for the business. It allowed me to be a peer to roll alongside of that, and to be able to be in the ring with you and capitalize on what it was you could do. So,
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, no introduction necessary, but Sabu, the man that changed wrestling, one of the faces, and got to have you back because there's still a lot more we're going to talk about.
Thank you, Jake.
Appreciate you, Sabu. Love you, bud. Thank you.